Hi, everyone. Today, our guest is Kevin Briggs, a retired police officer whose life has been shaped not only by human encounters, but by contact with non human intelligence. Since the age of 8, he has been guided by two Arthurian beings, exploring consciousness, out of body experiences, and the deeper nature of reality. At 71, he shares what he has learned and why he believes humanity is only beginning to understand this kind of contact. Welcome, Kevin Briggs. Thank you so
Welcome,
much for
Kevin.
joining us today.
Well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me on your show. Without people like yourself, I can't get my message out there. And several years ago now, you mentioned my guides, two of my guides, Orton Dee, who are Arcturians. They are guides and teachers, they tell me. They materialized in my bedroom at the bottom of the bed in the middle of the night. And after pleasantries, I asked them what was the reason for their visit. And they said they wanted me to talk about my lifelong contact with them. They wanted me to write about it. And I remember saying to Art, I said, I don't mind talking about it, but I'm not a writer. And he said, we will continue to guide you. We will continue to teach you. You will write 2 books, Kevin, and we will give you information to include in the books, which they have done. So a little bit about my background. I'm actually 72 now. I had another birthday this year. I keep getting another one every year. It keeps coming
Time
round.
doesn't stop.
I'm now 72. And in the UK, I was a police officer. I retired from being in the police force. I moved to Florida with my wife, and I've been in the real estate business since. But I'm retired now, and I just seem to do podcasts now, talking about my book, Spiritual Consciousness, A Personal Journey. And I'm surprised at the interest in the my own story. But it was interesting when Art came and materialized at the bottom of the bed with Dee. I said, but it's like me talking out about it, but people won't believe me. And he said, well, it doesn't matter whether people believe you or not. What is important is that you tell your story. I understand that now, excuse me, because I've met other people like myself who have their own contact. I've met people who have contact with Orton Dee. I've met people who have contact with the Council of Eight. So without speaking out, I wouldn't have met all these people. I wouldn't have met you two either. So that's a bonus, you see. So I'm happy speaking out, and I do as many podcasts as I can to get the information out there.
We did have Aurora in one of our podcasts, and Aurora is one also a person that has throughout her life been visited by Orton Dee. I guess you guys share the same kind of story, right?
Yes, very similar. I met Aurora at a local meeting here in Orlando, and I was invited to go and talk about my book. So I went there, spoke to her. After I'd finished giving my presentation, she came up to me and introduced herself. She resonated with the information that I was presenting. And then later on, I found out that she'd had contact with Orton Dee in 2015. I introduced her to the Exo Conscious community, and she became a member. And then she also was invited to a friend of mine's home to do a C5. And after the C5, she started channeling artwork of the Council of Eight. So yeah, we have a lot in common. We meet once a week on a Thursday with a group within the Exo Conscious community, and we talk about all different topics and things. But it's amazing how we have a group of people now who are having contact with not only Orton Dee, but a group of 8 extraterrestrials I refer to as the Council of Eight. So it's fascinating, really, when you're meeting other people. I mean, all my life, I've just been on my own, as it were. My brother knew about my contact with the star families. My wife knew about it, but I didn't really talk about it. I didn't need to. I used my natural psychic intelligence, natural psychic human abilities just to enhance my life. And I continue to do that to this day. But to meet other people who have developed their own natural human abilities like myself, it's quite fascinating. And I say we always meet on a Thursday, and I always look forward to that conversation. We have some fascinating conversations. So, I'm still on the journey. As I said earlier, I'm now 72. And perhaps if I tell you initially how it started, I was 3 years old.
I was just going to ask you that.
I see. I must be psychic. I must be psychic. I was 3 years old. My mother had engaged a photographer to take some photographs for the family album. He duly arrived, and I was lifted up onto the dining room table for a better elevation for the photograph. And from there, I looked around the room, and I realized that my conscious energy was in the physical body again. It was like there was two of me, the physical side, which I could touch and feel with all the senses, and then inside the body was this conscious energy. And that was my first recollection of being conscious in this incarnation. So that's how it all started quite a few years ago now.
Can you so you've been in contact with Orton Dee throughout 6 decades now? More.
Yes,
Even more.
When I was 8 years old, I was taking a bath at home. There was a change in the frequency within the bathroom, and as a child, I was always susceptible to these frequencies that surround us. And I looked to my right, and two beings materialized. That was Orton Dee. Ort's the male, Dee is the female. Both extremely attractive. Both had long blonde shoulder-length hair, deep blue eyes, and they were wearing a jumpsuit type garment. They were speaking telepathically to one another, which I could understand, and they were speaking about me, not to me. And I remember some of the conversation. Dee asked Ort, "Is this the boy?" Ort said yes. And then she questioned him and said, "Are you sure this is the boy?" I said, "Yes, this is the boy." And then she said, "But look at him, he's small, he's uneducated, and he's frightened by our presence." And she was correct. I was terrified. There was some other conversation, and then they left. As I said, I was so frightened I daren't get out of the bath. The water went cold. I was shivering. My mother came in to see why I was still in the bathtub. I told her about the two beings, and she said it was just my imagination. It wasn't. I'm 72 now, and I'm still in contact with Orton Dee to this day.
And do you so throughout these years, do you see you mentioned that they were teaching you and showing you things. Do you see a progression in your teachings? So if you go look back, can you see that there was some sort of a plan or lesson
Yes.
1, lesson 2, kind of like this? And
Yes, I see that now. When I look back, it was a lesson, a lesson in consciousness itself and how it can be utilized as a conduit for communication, for travel, for healing, for education, for creation and co-creation. And I've had many examples of all those modalities. A lot of the teaching was out of body, and how I came to be able to travel outside of the physical realm, outside of the body at will, when I was 9 years old. I remember all these things like they happened yesterday. I had some friends round. It was a Sunday. We'd been playing some board games. We'd finished. It was about 5 o'clock. They were going home for their tea. We packed away the board games. I showed them out the house. I turned back into the home, and I felt this frequency in the home that I hadn't felt before. So I went looking for this frequency. I went into the living room, upstairs into the 3 bedrooms, and then went back into the living room where I felt the frequency was strongest. I was drawn to the window. I looked behind the curtains, the drapes, and there was an orb there. It was about 4 to 6 inches across, slightly vibrating, golden yellow in colour. There was no communication, and I thought, well, it'll disappear when I go to bed. I didn't know what it was. And I woke up the following morning, and I could feel the frequency. to cut a long story short, it was still there until Friday when I came home from school. I opened the back door and I couldn't feel the frequency anymore. As I said, there was no communication that I was aware of, but from that day on, I was able to travel outside of the physical realm as pure conscious energy, as a pure conscious energy orb, as they do. And it wasn't until I got much older, about 17 or 18, I thought all this were just natural human abilities. And I believe that they are. We just don't develop them. So I was able to travel outside of my body from the age of 9 at will. And I didn't know the full potential as a child. I do now. I only used it. I lived in Wakefield in the UK. My grandparents lived in Liverpool, which was about 70 miles away. And on a Sunday, I'd relax, I'd open my mind, and I'd leave my body and go over to their home, enter through the roof, and then sit upstairs in the master bedroom. They had a dressing room off there, and I would sit in this chair. I would look down through the floor, which was opaque. I could see my grandmother usually cooking in the kitchen on a Sunday, and my grandfather either watching TV or reading the newspaper. And it gave me great pleasure to see them there. But then I think that, well, I know now the reason why they gave me this ability or activated the ability, I
Exactly.
suspect these are encoded as light frequencies within our DNA. And that week that he was there, well, from the Sunday to the Friday, I believe he activated some of those codes in my DNA that allowed me to travel outside of the physical realm, as they do, as pure conscious energy orbs. And from there, as I say, I didn't know the full potential then. I do now. But then that allowed me to be educated outside of the body. So I would leave the body and travel with Orton Dee and be given experiences. I wasn't sat down in a classroom like I know that some experiences are, or taken onto a craft and sat down in a classroom. I was given practical experiences, and those experiences were a continuation and extension of consciousness, so I had an understanding of it.
Okay.
And Kevin, do you think, because you have this support from Orton Dee, but do you think that any individual without external support can enable this capacity?
Yes.
Because you just mentioned that probably they enabled some of your capacities on cellular or energetical level. So I'm just wondering, is this something that we can do without external supports? Is
Yes.
it something to do?
Yes, we can. Yes, we have to learn. We have to practice it, but it's a natural human ability. There are people now that teach out-of-body travel, people that teach remote viewing. It's all using consciousness itself as a conduit for these extensions of natural human ability. I think mine was accelerated because they wanted me to do some work. So they activated the DNA, and I just did it naturally. As I said, I thought it was like just one of our normal senses. It wasn't that until people never spoke about it. So I know when I got to about 17, I asked family and friends as a third party. I said, I have a friend of mine that travels outside of his body at will. Do you know anybody else that does this? And they all said, no, I must be imagining it or delusional. So what I did, I asked Ort. One night I went to bed and I said, Ort, I know there's a lot more to this. Can you come and show me? I held out my hand. I fell asleep and he came. He took hold of my hand. I left my body. I looked down. We left through the window and flew around the subdivision where I lived. And then back into the window. I could see my body asleep, and then back into my body. And I woke up the following morning thinking, well, that was cool. I'm used to traveling on my own, but not with someone else. So I thought I'd try it again on the second night. So I did the same. I relaxed. I went to bed. I held my hand out. I asked Ort to come and show me more. He came. He took hold of my hand. And then this time we flew down we went out through the window again, down into Leeds city centre where I worked. I recognised the university building, the hospital building, the town hall. And at that time, Leeds was a vibrant city. The streets were full of people enjoying themselves. And then we came back to my apartment, in through the window. I see my body asleep, back into my body. So I wake up the second morning, I think, well, I'm still not certain what's happening. I mean, used to do it on my own, just go where I want to go. But now I'm going with Ort. So I ask him again. But only this time when he comes, I said, I'm not happy about going out through the window. We're 3 stories up. I don't know whether I'm sleepwalking or dreaming or what's really happening. So can we go out through the roof this time? We went out through the roof, and then all subsequent journeys, we went out through the roof. So to me, it's natural. I can still travel this way and still do. But again, in answer to your question, it's a natural human ability once we understand the greater reality that we live in.
And
Now, I was going to
Go
ask,
ahead,
because
Samantha.
you talked about astral projection and remote viewing, and then there's teleportation. This is not the same thing, right? There are different nuances to these things. Or bilocation. What is kind of like the main differences?
Yes, the difference is the frequencies of consciousness. Each one is a frequency of consciousness. So if you want to remote view, you access that frequency of consciousness. If you want to travel out of body, you access that frequency of consciousness. If you want to bilocate, and I'm able to bilocate, then you access that frequency of consciousness. I can tell you a quick story that's interesting in relation to that. I was out one day just traveling through the solar system, because I can, and I like to look at the planets and the rings around some of the planets. And I'm on my way back. Bearing in mind I'm out of body, I'm just traveling, and I materialize. I bilocate onto the a small craft, onto the cockpit that's being piloted by 2 small greys. Both of them looked round at me. They turned around and looked round and said telepathically to one another, "What's he doing here?" And I realised I shouldn't be there, so I apologised. I left. I went back to my home. I see my body asleep. I went back into my body. I woke up, and when I woke up, there was a tall grey being stood there, and he warned me not to interfere. He said I shouldn't be there, and then he left. But then a reptilian appeared. I've never seen a reptilian before. And he was ambivalent to the human race. He didn't like us. He was there because he wanted to see how a mere human can bilocate, travel out of body, understand telepathic communication. But he didn't like us. Anyway, then he left. But that's an example of bilocating. But again, just frequencies of consciousness itself.
So you cannot hitchhike
Yeah,
for free.
yeah, I suppose really, yeah. I think it really
intergalactic hitchhiking for not
once
good.
once we understand consciousness itself and the frequencies of consciousness, and once we access them, we use them like a tool. And I say, Orton Dee, they use conscious energy for communication, for travel, for healing, for education, for creation and co-creation. We all have those abilities. You can't fly a jumbo jet, a 747, without having lessons. So we have to have lessons. I have friends who now teach remote viewing, and that's, again, accessing a level of consciousness and using that frequency to remote view another area. And then I say, traveling out of body onto the astral plane, a higher level of frequency again. I remember on one occasion, I was traveling on the astral plane, again, just because I can, and it's enjoyable. And Orton Dee came alongside me in a craft, and this craft was conscious. It was a conscious craft that they created. They invited me on board, and as I went through the skin of the craft, I could feel that it was conscious. It had conscious energy. And as on that particular occasion, I think they wanted me to convey a message to Dr. Stephen Greer, which I did, but that's another story. While I'm in there, they gave me the information, and then I said, let me see if I understand what's happening here. I said, we've got 3 beings traveling out of body on the astral plane. in a conscious craft that you've created. And said, I'm from the third dimension, you're from the fifth dimension. And again, the only difference between the dimensions are the frequencies of consciousness. Ort said to me, yes, that's correct. I said, I see you two as a pure conscious energy orb, which I've described 46 inches in diameter, slightly vibrating, yellow, golden in colour. How do you see me? And they said, Kevin, we see you exactly the same. So really that was a lesson again in relation to using consciousness to travel on the astral plane, interact with other beings. And again, I believe we all, well, I know we all have these abilities. We just have to learn how to use them.
And Kevin, I always like to understand, why do you think that this connection was established to you? Is it because you have a past with these experiences? Is it your family? Because I know that sometimes they like to follow some bloodlines or some people that the family has been followed, and so they have a specific genetics or...
I don't know definitively, but I have my own opinions. I suspect as a soul, I chose to come down here and do this work from the soul
Okay.
level. But I remembered my previous lives as a young child, and I was able to explore them. One of those lives, I was a high priest in the Temple of Karnak in ancient Egyptian times. My role there was working with the seven sisters from the Pleiades system. The seven sisters at that time were the creators of the time, the creators of the timeline, and they relayed the messages to me, then I relayed them to the rulers or the people that control the societies at the time. And I suspect my role is very similar here now. I know what my mission is. It is to help facilitate the reveal globally of our star family's presence. So a similar one, being a messenger, as it were, but I haven't been given that direct information in relation to the choices, whether I chose as a soul to come down or whether it's part of the lineage because I've already evolved as a soul with these natural human abilities. And I believe we're all on the same journey. It just depends where you are on that level of education, on your own personal journey. The beauty of it is I can assist people. I was at a conference once, and this lady came up to me, and she was an attorney, and she was asking about traveling out of body. And so I gave her a brief exercise that you can do that I did as a child. I said, what you need to do, you need to relax, open your mind, find somewhere quiet, close your eyes, control your breathing, and then look inward. Keep looking inward, and you'll see what appears to be an eye. Then when you see that eye, change direction and move through the eye. When you get to the other side, you're on the astral plane. She said to me, Kevin, I see the eye, but I daren't go through it. I feel as if I won't be able to get back. I said, well, I've been doing that from childhood, and I always come back. So later on, she did try it, and she was able to do it. And then just recently, a good friend of mine, Dr. Karen McLeod, she asked me, so I gave her the same information. And on the first try, she was able to get on the astral plane, and she met with another being. And the being was carrying a wand, and he scanned her with this wand. She doesn't know who the being is yet, but it's, again, just natural human abilities that we need to explore.
Yeah, so interesting. What you have been mentioning is always like it's like you are in this kind of mission that you are given messages, you convey these messages to other people. So there seems to be kind of like some mission that it's unseen, but that energy is flowing from one human to another human, and you are attracted. Like you met Aurora and other people
I
who
would
now
agree.
are,
Yeah, I would agree. I met another lady called Rebecca Renfro, and Rebecca Renfro, she met Orton Dee in 2015, long before I'd met Rebecca Renfro. And then she wrote a book about It's called Quantum Windows and Dimensions. I don't know if you can see that there.
Okay, yeah. Quantum engine.
That's Rebecca at the back there. And in there, she writes about meeting Orton Dee in 2015. And coincidentally, Aurora Belcia met Orton Dee in 2015. And I'm sure others, they are educating others as well. And I suspect there's many star families here reaching out to humanity to help us to evolve. The beings that I'm in contact with, which I refer to as the Council of Eight, are benevolent. They're here to assist with our evolution. And part of that evolution is understanding consciousness, understanding a greater reality of who we are and the true reality of the physical realms, as it were. I believe we are I know we are multidimensional beings. And we are able to travel between the dimensions. We're able to communicate with the different levels of consciousness within those dimensions. In fact, couple of years ago, they gave me downloads of information very often. I was sat by my pool, and they gave me an information about the quantum unified field theory, which I knew nothing about. In an instant, they just gave it to me, and I said to them, "Look, you've just given me all this information." And how do I know it's not my own imagination? I said, can you show me a craft to show me that the information's come from you? And a craft appeared immediately outside of the pool cage. I went inside to get my wife. I said, Sandy, come out and look at this witness's craft. She came outside. We went outside the pool cage. A second craft, 3, 4, 5, 7 craft in total appeared.
Yeah.
Silently and slowly over our heads, changed direction by about 80 degrees, and then disappeared sequentially as they had arrived. So that was good confirmation for me. And then another time I was sat by my pool, and they gave me the theory of everything, again in an instant. On that,
my God.
I said, look, you've just given me all this information about the theory of everything. Can you show me a craft? And a craft appeared immediately and flashed 1, 2, 3 times. So that was confirmation for that one. And then later on, they gave me an equation for calculating the frequencies of consciousness in each dimension. And part of my education was that the different dimensions are only different frequencies of consciousness. And that equation just been published in this book titled A Greater Reality by Ray Hernandez. And there are 6 volumes of that book. And if you want to download them, you can download all 6 volumes for free from greaterreality.com. I think they're downloaded as a PDF file. I bought that particular copy. Volume 5, because I was asked to be a contributing author, and I have a chapter in there with that equation and another equation they gave me for the void of consciousness. And the reason why they gave me that information was the fact that with an explanation that all timelines, past, present, and future timelines, are created or co-created from the void of consciousness. And they gave me an equation with that explanation. And they said it's not void as the name suggests. It's full of possibilities, full of potential, full of intentions. And that's how but that was there. And again, that equation's in that book. That information is there. So we are evolving as a species. We have an understanding of consciousness and how we create our own reality. So now we have the ability, and now all this information has been shared with the exo conscious community. So we have the information which we share openly with others in how to create timelines, co-create timelines, which is what we are doing now.
You are co-creating timelines within that group. intentionally.
Within the exo-conscious community, we are
Okay.
co-created with benevolent extraterrestrials, with the Council of Eight. The Council of Eight are reaching out to many members of the exo-conscious community. And if anybody's interested in that information, there's a website, Exo-Conscious Humans, don't forget the S, exoconscioushumans.com. They have a YouTube channel, and different members speak on there, and we share the information. In fact, we now have a planetary constitution, which was drawn up by some of the members in relation to the sovereignty of humanity and how we are moving forward to take our place within the galactic community. And within that community, we have to have our own sovereignty as humanity. So a document has been drawn up for that. And then a couple of years ago, I was actually asked to contact the United Nations in relation to see if they had a mandated protocol to receive the extraterrestrials. I contacted the chairman of the Outer Space Affairs Committee, Nicholas Hedman's office, and they did reply. They said there wasn't a mandated protocol to receive our advanced extraterrestrials if they wish to communicate with us. So I asked how would we implement such a mandate, and they said that you would have to get a member state to make a proposal, and then it would be voted upon. So that was it then, left it at that. And then a bit later on, they contacted me again with a specific date and time and location where they wanted to meet with our United Nations. I contacted Nicholas Hedman's office again in Vienna with the information, and I also contacted a Dr. DiPippo in Washington, D.C. He worked out of that office there, and I didn't receive a reply. But what was interesting with that, another experiencer called Terry Lovelace, he contacted me and he said, Kevin, I've been given the exact same information that you've been given. And I said, well, I've already contacted Nicholas Hedman's office in Vienna and sent an email to Dr. DiPippo in Washington, D.C. He said, well, I know Dr. DiPippo. He said, I will write an email supporting what you are saying because I've been given exact same information. So he wrote as well. Neither of us received any reply at that time, but that's not surprising. So Terry went through the back channels of government that he is aware of, and in his words, he got the pushback. But Terry is a retired law professor. He's a retired assistant district attorney for 2 jurisdictions. So he's well versed within the local governments themselves. But interesting. But then later on, the Council of Eight contacted me and asked me to draft a mandated protocol to what they required for us, the citizens of Earth, to make the request for them to show themselves. So I drafted a copy. I have a copy here of the mandated protocol to receive our ET Star Families ambassadors. That can be seen on the Exo-Conscious Humans website. Yeah, so we are moving forward. There are many people they are reaching out to. I've already mentioned Ray Hernandez and his book, his work. He's connected many scientists together, many experiences together. And Ray's story itself is absolutely fascinating, how he was reached out to by the star families and asked him to do this work that he is doing. So, and I said there is a documentary coming out, a film coming out, hopefully soon. I know it's finished and it's now with a distributor with the same title, A Greater Reality. It brought all the people together, all the scientists, the experiencers, and put it all together. So it'll be quite interesting to see. I'm looking forward to watching that. So it's clearly a collaborative joint work with with the star families and those of us who have the abilities, the natural human abilities to have the communication, the telepathic communication with our star families.
I think it's very cool. Sorry. I was just going to counterpose because I saw the trailer of the documentary that you're saying, and I also saw a brief other documentary about disclosure, which I think it's an American trailer movie documentary with a lot of people from the government, and I can feel that let's say the frequency is completely different. The disclosure one, it's like it's inducing. I felt inducing fear, basically fear. We don't know, and we of course we know that they know way. This is not unknown for United States government. Dr. Stephen Greer also puts a lot out. So I'm very I was very happy to see that this documentary is again from love, from openness, from it's an intergalactic meeting to enhance all the species,
benevolent,
and not to again come to hierarchy. We are the good ones, you are the bad ones, and we never end this this talk. So
yes, I agree with you.
I'm very happy.
I think you're referring to the Age of Disclosure. I haven't watched it, but I've heard that there's a threat and fear narrative that runs through the documentary. But if it's based through the the government officials, then that appears to be their narrative, fear factor, threat narrative, national security narrative. Well, the group of 8 extraterrestrials that I'm in contact with, others that I'm in contact with, in the exo-conscious community, these group of represent the Galactic Federation. They are benevolent towards humanity. They want to assist us in our evolution and assist us with the pollution on our planet. They will share some of their technologies with us when we have open contact. They are particularly concerned about the Fukushima and the radiation that's still leaking from there, they tell me. But they're willing to help with all that. So we need to hear the positive side. We need to hear the benevolent side of our star families and take away that fear and threat narrative. And the Council of 8 are working towards that through me and many others.
And Kevin, why you just mentioned that the Council of 8 is working through you, and I'm just wondering, why don't they reach out directly to these people in power in the government and push them directly in a nice way into all of this opening? And why do they need to come through certain people and try to push the message?
Okay, well, they've told me that they've tried reaching out to our governments and they're not interested in working with them at this moment in time. So now what they're doing, they are going to, and they've got their own guidelines that what they can and can't do as well. But they say that now the request for the reveal will come from the citizens of Earth. And I suspect that's what I'm working towards now. In fact, we have a Citizens for Disclosure group now. I was just speaking to one of the members the other day, Dr. Melanie Barton, and she's working now towards speaking at the UN in relation to relaying this information. So, you're entering the galactic politics, really. But what they did tell me is that we have to do this ourselves. They are not going to do it for us. So that's why I suspect it has to come from the citizens of Earth, from normal people like myself, like Dr. Melanie Barton, like Rebecca Hardcastle-Wright, the founder of the Exo-Conscious community. All these people and members within the Exo-Conscious community are working towards it, and we work towards the benevolent side of our star families, the positive side. We don't use a fear or threat narrative on national security threat narrative. We use one of education, of information, of benevolence, really.
So what I understand is that they cannot meddle in our affairs, in our political situation, and instead of going from top to bottom, they go from bottom and try to open up the people and make them understand reality, and then let the people rise up and take and change whatever is in the government, right?
Yes, I hadn't thought about it that way, but you're describing it quite aptly there. They did tell me they will only intervene if we use our nuclear weapons again.
Yeah.
Then they will intervene. They've told me that. And the government are aware of that. They've already demonstrated that they can activate the launch codes. They've already demonstrated they can deactivate the launch code.
Yeah.
They've already demonstrated they can shoot the intercontinental ballistic missiles down at the highest height and velocity. So our governments are aware of that. So it really makes them obsolete anyway. And they don't want a forced disclosure. So hopefully we will not use our nuclear weapons. I think they're outdated anyway now. We probably have more advanced weapons than that now. But we don't need to go down that route. We need to expand our collective consciousness, expand our humanity, and take a seat at the table with the Galactic Council. In fact, Aurora Belcia, if you want to see her artwork, it's on the Exo Conscious Humans website.
Yep.
Go to gallery, and one of the paintings that she channeled, and there's a picture of the Council of Eight, and at the table there's a vacant seat. That vacant seat, I believe, is for humanity.
Yes.
We
have seen.
Very poignant piece of artwork is that. So they are assisting. We, as I say, we have to do the work ourselves. Now, if you're interested in what they are saying, I've got a book here. What is it? Let's have a look. Oh, this one. A book called Forbidden Knowledge. It's by Kathleen Marden. And I'll tell you a quick story. I was asked by the Council of Eight to go down to a MUFON meeting in Orlando. It's actually a conference in Orlando. I live about 45 minutes west of Orlando in Florida. So I drove down there. As I'm driving down there, I said to Ort, just telepathically having a conversation with him, I hope I meet somebody down here that can help me on my journey and I'm not wasting my time. And when I got there, I was very impressed with the conference. A lot of professional people there, doctors, lawyers, engineers, all sorts. So a selection of different people. I enjoyed the lectures. Then it came to lunchtime and I went to the cafeteria to get a sandwich for my lunch. And I bought a sandwich and there was nowhere to sit. All the seats were taken. It was full. And then I saw a vacant seat on a table with two ladies. So I said, I walked over and I said to the two ladies, can I sit down and eat my sandwich? They said yes. They continued their conversation. And when I'd finished my sandwich, they brought me into their conversation. One of those ladies was Dr. Melanie Barton. She was the person I was there to meet. From there, at that conference, I went to an experiences meeting with Denise Stoner, and there were about 30 people in this meeting, all experiencers like myself. And I'd never met other people like me. They were telling their stories, I told mine. I thought that was fascinating and positive, all positive. And then from those two meetings, Dr. Melanie Barton arranged a lunch with Kathleen Marden. After the lunch, Kathleen Marden invited us back to her home. Coincidentally, she only lives 10 minutes from where I live. And while I'm talking to them, I'm giving them the information that I've been given by our star families. And I think Denise and Dr. Melanie Barton said, Kevin, do you know what you're doing? I said, no, what am I doing? She says, you're channeling the information. I said, oh, am I? and when I look back at it, I wasn't accessing my own memory. The information was like here, and I was accessing it. So I was channeled. So because of that, what happened then? We decided to meet at my home one Saturday. Melanie, Denise Stoner, Dr. Melanie Barton, and Kathleen Marden, and my wife. And Melanie did a meditation, said, let's see if we can reach out to these extraterrestrials and see if they'll speak to us or give us some information. So she did the meditation, and then she said, she went round the room, did anybody get any information? Everybody said no. She came to me, said, Kevin, did you get the information? I said, no. And then she said, are you sure? I said, well, I didn't get any information. I said, but there's a male stood in front of me on the right-hand side here. She said, who is it? I said, I don't know. She said, well, ask him. So I asked him, and it was Ort, and he spoke through me then for 40 minutes to the group. Because of that, we then met at my home on a Saturday once a month. We asked a dozen questions. We wrote down the answers, and they were transcribed and put into this book called
Okay.
Forbidden Knowledge by Kathleen
Uh-huh.
Marr. There's over
Okay.
100 questions there that we asked the Council of Eight, and I channeled the answers. So if you're interested in our discussion, in what was discussed, that's an excellent book to buy and read. So,
Mhm.
but because of that, that shows how I'm guided. They asked me to go down to the conference. I wouldn't have gone of my own accord. Then, well, I wouldn't have met Melanie then. Then I wouldn't have met the others. And I find that that's what they do. And I met Rebecca Renfro, who wrote the book Quantum Windows and Dimensions, through Kathleen Madden. So it's like
Connected.
they're linking us all together. And I know with the exo-conscious community, a good friend of mine now, Dr. Karen McLeod, she was out walking one day and she's just listening to a random podcast. And it's me talking about the download of the quantum unified field theory and how I received it. And she heard it. She'd been given exactly the same download of the quantum unified field theory, verbatim. She says, who is this Kevin Briggs? Why has he got the information that I've got? Anyway, it turns out that Dr. Karen McLeod worked with Rebecca Hardcastle-Wright about 15 years prior to that in some science project. I'm not quite sure what it was. So she contacted Rebecca. She became a member of the exo-conscious community. And now she receives the same downloads that I get. We get the same information. We share it. We confirm it with one another. We confirm it with the group. So when I think you asked earlier, Renata, do I see a story? Do I see it evolving? Yes, and it's continuing to do so. And I don't worry about it. If they want to give me information, they do that. If they want me to do something, they will ask me. I do what they ask me to do as long as it's legal.
Yeah. As long as it's legal, it's good.
And have you ever had any contact with the scientific community trying to get your information and put it into the work and seeing, in a practical manner? Have you had this connection or people interested in working with you?
A couple of times. I had a what's his first name now? Sperry Andrews. He's a leading scientist in consciousness. He's passed now, unfortunately. A couple of years ago, he contacted me. I think he saw me on the Jeff Marver podcast. And I think he was part of a team that was nominated for the Nobel Prize for Consciousness. I'm not certain on that, but I think that's what he told me. And we had a conversation about consciousness over Zoom for a couple of hours. And we had another conversation. And then we had another conversation. And then we brought Karen McLeod. It did, Dr. Karen McLeod. So the three of us having conversations about consciousness. Bearing in mind, I'm not a scientist. I know Karen McLeod is a psychologist, I believe. And then one day he contacted me and said, Kevin, can you ask Orton Dee what they know about the void? And I hadn't heard that particular term before, other than, void and empty space or whatever. So I asked Orton Dee, and they gave me the equation for the void of consciousness with the explanation of how timelines, past, present, and future, are created or co-created. So I gave him the equation. He understood the equation, and he understood the explanation. But what was interesting there was the fact that he reached out from the scientific community, asking me as an experiencer to ask a question of Orton Dee that I had no knowledge of. But as I say, that equation is now published in Ray and Andy's book. And obviously the scientific community will read that, whether they understand it, whether they think it's all BS or what, I don't know. But it's out there now. It's part of our collective consciousness. But when I was speaking with Sperry, all his theories in relation to consciousness dovetailed with my experiences, with my practical experiences. So he got confirmation of his theories. I had an understanding of the theories of how I'm meant to do this. So yeah, there's that communication there. And then there was another. What's the other one? I can't remember now. Someone else reached out. Oh, that was it. It was the Galileo project. One of the scientists reached out to me from there, and she wanted to know about my contact because apparently I was told that the Galileo project was formulated to track the craft entering and leaving our atmosphere on a daily basis. That's not the official narrative. The official narrative, I think, is tracking space debris and meteors and things like that. And but
Space
yeah,
debris.
I was told that by the scientist who works on that group. Why I was told that, I don't know. But so those are the only two. And if you look at Ray Hernandez, I don't really class him as a scientist, but he's brought all the scientists together. He asked me to be a contributing author, which I wouldn't have been able to get those equations out there with the explanations on my own. You know, people don't buy my books. A few people do, but you need a larger audience. And now it's in a greater reality, which is backed by, it's edited by leading scientists. If you read the scientists on the front, I mean, I think they're all retired now, but that allows them to speak out. So yeah, there is that connection there. And why they've given me the scientific information, I'm not certain, but I absorb it, I understand it to some degree, I suppose. I'm not a scientist per se, but once I'm given the explanation and understanding, and I say I can explain consciousness itself, I've got all these experiences of utilizing it for communication, for travel, for healing, for education, for creation and co-creation. So I have an understanding. So if somebody wants an explanation, I can explain it, or maybe not explain it, but give an example of how I use it myself. And within that example, they can take the information and utilize it themselves.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, or Kevin, you just mentioned that for healing. So I was going to ask you, for the healing part, is it kind of Reiki what you do, or how is it the process?
Okay, well, my understanding is I'm not a Reiki master. There are people that are Reiki masters. I think Kathleen Marden is, Dr. Melanie Barton. They use Reiki. I think my understanding is they transfer the energies from the higher levels of consciousness. It's transferred through them and changes the frequency of people who are sick, ill, or whatever, have got some ailments. That's my understanding. That's very simplistic. I'm not here for the healing side of it. There are many people who heal, but I did ask my star family. I had a couple of moles on my left elbow and one on my wrist, and I'd had them for a long time. They didn't cause many problems, and then they started cracking and bleeding and itching. So I thought I'd better go and see the doctor and see what they are. And I Googled them first, and it said on the Google they were skin melanoma. So I thought, oh, well, I better go and get them removed. So, but that night I went to bed and I said to Orton Dee in the Council of Eight, I said, look, I've got these skin melanoma, 2 on my left elbow and 1 on my wrist. Can you remove them for me this evening? Otherwise, I'll have to make an appointment with my regular doctor and have them removed. I went to sleep. I woke up in the morning. The 2 on my left elbow completely disappeared. New baby skin there. And the 1 on my right wrist had disappeared, but there was a red line around where the periphery had been, and that disappeared by lunchtime. So that's just a simple example by asking. I think my understanding from the medical conditions in relation to the diseases are caused by the frequencies being out of alignment within the cells, and the Reiki and the other healing modalities that we can use bring those cells back into line, into that correct frequency. So yeah, you would have to ask. There's people within the exo-conscious community who are healers. They could explain it better to you. Nick Pestera, he's a healer. He's a Reiki master. So there are people out there that have these expertise. And I think there's Sandra Rose Michaels, she was given information in relation to scalar light frequencies from our star families for healing. And I think they now have about 250 centers in the US, and they use light frequencies for healing. Again, I don't fully understand how it works, but I'm sure if you contact her or one of their 250 places where they practice this, they will tell you how it works. So they are, again, reaching out, but there's so many facets. There's so much technology in relation to this, but not just technology, the understanding of consciousness itself and self-healing. So yeah, it's really having to explore it. We've got the internet. We can explore anything now. And it's just a matter of doing your own research, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was interesting, the healing, because the Arcturians, they are known to be healers, no?
Yes, exactly.
Many
They're known healers. Just people go to them and they are healed.
exactly.
I know Dr. Melanie Barton, she does psychic healing, and I've met another person that does psychic healing. She takes the person's, shall we say, conscious energy into a healing chamber. Within that chamber, they are healed and then put back in the body, as it were. That's, way beyond my understanding, but there are people that are doing that. I know one lady I spoke to once, within their normal practice within their hospital, they had a psychic team that went and visited people and healed people psychically. Well, we don't talk about that. Nobody talks about it. But she did, because she was part of the team. And these were normal doctors in a normal hospital doing this type of work. Just amazing. We know very little about who we are, really, I think.
Interesting. Psychic doctors. Yeah, we know it's all about the mind and what you believe and then other things. But it's interesting that there is not a physical intervention.
Yes, yes.
That's
Purely psychic.
It's energetic in frequency.
Yes,
you were saying.
Sorry, go on.
No, I was linking this with what you were saying, that remote viewing, astral projection, biolocation, these are all different frequencies of experience. And my question is, this seems like frequency is a language of what I feel is like we are talking, but what's happening here, there is happening an exchange of frequency. Your frequency, my frequency, Soraya's frequency, and they are all kind of like intermingled. Or maybe we are at the same frequency now.
Yes,
I'm not sure exactly.
Yes, I would agree. I think a simple explanation is the radio frequencies. On a radio, you dial the knob and it takes you to the frequency. If you get to that frequency, you can hear the music that's coming out there. Well, I think consciousness is exactly the same. In relation to, we need to learn to dial the frequency that we need. If it's the frequency for traveling out of body, the frequency for healing, the frequency for bilocating, and all to travel on the astral plane. Once you can dial that frequency, then you can access it. So it's no different to what we already know, but instead of using radio waves, we're using conscious energy. I think that's the only difference, really.
And this dial is intention, no? Because I think in the beginning we have to do a certain practice, but as soon as we get the physical experience of being in this state and in being in that state, we can immediately go to that state because we already been there and we already kind of like know it. So in the beginning, we need kind of sort of a practice with, follow some, I don't know, some steps that like you were saying in the beginning, relax, focus this. But I'm sure that you don't do any of this now. You're just there. You don't even close your eyes. I would say that, no?
Yeah, in fact, someone asked me a question this morning for the Council of Eight, and they gave me the answer as I read the question. So yes,
exactly.
It's yeah. But, I mean, I'm probably extreme, really, but
yeah.
But yes, I agree with you what you're saying there, Renata. Yeah.
Yes, it's
You want me to
strange.
tell you
It's a different language.
how and when I met the Council of Eight? Because I haven't got to that bit yet.
Yes, you didn't. Yeah.
Please, yeah.
Well, if we go back to I know we're going all over the place, but if
Yeah.
we go back, if we go back to, I told you when I was 3, 8, 9. My next experience, I'd be 14, and this is when I met the Council of Eight. And at 14, I had a paper round in Wakefield, and I would leave the home to go and cycle down to the paper shop. And as I left the home, a UFO would appear above the house. And then as I'm cycling down, a second UFO would appear. They would follow me around the paper round. And then when I'd finished, one would usually go back the way it'd come, and the other one would go straight up into space. And while that was happening, I was always aware of a frequency behind the hedge, behind the wall. And on one occasion, I plucked up the courage and I said, I know you are there. Can you show yourself? 2 small grey beings stepped out from behind the hedge, behind the wall. I wasn't frightened. I asked them what they wanted, and they said, Kevin, there's a group of people that wish to meet with you. Will you come with us? I said, well, I've got my paper round to finish, and then I've got to go to school. I don't think I'll be able to go with you. They said, well, you've nearly finished your paper round. You can finish that, and if you come with us, we'll have you back in time for school. So I agreed to go with them. I was transported to a large mothership, and I believe it was a mothership because of the size of the hangar. When we egressed the small craft, the hangar was the size of 2 football stadiums side by side, with all these different craft in there. And I was led down.
Kevin, I'm sorry to cut you off. I just want to understand, this was physical?
Physical, yes, this was physical when I was 14.
Okay.
Yes, it wasn't on the astral, it wasn't out of body, this was physical, yeah. So it was a
Okay.
physical connection with them. And from there, I was led down into an amphitheater, and the amphitheater was full of all these different beings. And at the bottom of the amphitheater was a stage with some tables there, and there were 8 beings sat behind this table. There was Orton Dee, the 2 that I'd met in the bathroom when I was 8. There was Anna, she was a blue bird type being. Zark, he's a mathematician and engineer. He designs propulsion systems. I think he's the one that gives me the scientific information. And then Ra, he's Anunnaki. He leads this group. And then Tag, he's a tall grey. And he told me that he was responsible for not only the security of the Council of Eight, but the security of this quadrant of the galaxy. Then next was Chica. I was a little perturbed by Chica. He's a tall mantis being, over 6 foot tall. Even though he was sat down, I could see how he was a tall mantis being, just like we have here, exactly the same, but bigger. And then the last one was Orla. She was a tall white. I was introduced to them all. Initially, I thought I was there as a human specimen. I realize now I wasn't. That was like a parliament, like a congress, like a senate, where all the delegates sit in the audience, as it were, and the ones that are giving the lectures or whatever are sat at the front. So I was there to be, it was a meet and greet, so I could meet the Council of Eight. So I've met them in person. I've now channeled them all. I channeled them as an introduction when we started doing the meditations at my home once a month on Saturdays. So I have a good contact with them all, mainly Orton Dee, Zark and Ra. They're the 4 that I have, but I do have contact with them all. So that's how I met them when I was 14.
You don't need any social media to be in contact with people. That's a total myth, because you are surrounded by contacts in meeting.
It's quite fascinating, really.
Beings.
Once we develop our own natural human psychic abilities, psychic intelligence, I can have a conversation like I did with Ort when I was driving down to the MUFON conference in Orlando. I'm talking to him and he's talking back to me. So yeah, and like I said this morning, I got an email making a request, and as I'm reading the email, I get the answer. So yeah, and I'm able to speak on their behalf because of that. So yeah.
And Kevin, I do understand that every being has its own frequency. Were Was it complicated for you to be in the presence of different beings with different frequencies? Like your body physically, did you did you feel anything? Did you feel ill? Was there any sign?
Okay, from the physical side of it, when I met them when I was 14, no problem whatsoever. I didn't have any issues. It was just like meeting 8 people here, human people, sat within an amphitheatre. No difference at all. When they channel through me, there's a difference then, and I feel that. When they channel through me, they're using consciousness. They call it dual. Oh, I forgot now what they call it. Dual physical. I forget. It'll come to me. But what they do, they use the consciousnesses of frequency, their consciousness in my body. And because they have a higher frequency, I generate heat. And they come through and talk for 40 minutes or whatever. I get very hot. I get very sweaty. And then if Ra comes through, his energy is tremendous. And we did measure the air temperature immediately around me when I'm channeling these beings, and it rises between 7 and 10 degrees. So and I did ask them why that was, and they said because I was at the lower frequency of the 3rd dimension. We are 5th dimensional beings. Ra's a 9th dimensional being, so when he comes through, that difference within the frequency within my... If you understand that all my cells resonate at a frequency which is okay with the 3rd dimension, and then a 5th dimension comes in, those frequencies are much higher, and that creates the heat. And then when I first started doing the channeling, I was extremely tired. I was exhausted by it. Now it doesn't bother me. I still know that I've been channeling a higher conscious energy. But in fact, I think I have a website, kevinjbriggs.com, and there's a couple of channels I put on there. One, I was asked, again, the Council of 8 contacted me and said, Kevin, we want you to go down to Miami to a conference, which was, at that time, it was called Free with Ray Hernandez. It's now the Consciousness and Contact Research Institute. And we want you to speak to the conference. Well, I wasn't known then. So I contacted Ray Hernandez, who was the organizer, who was the director of that. And I said, my Star Family guides have asked me to come down and speak at your conference. Would that be okay? He says, yes, come on down. So I went down there. I went with Melanie Barton, Dr. Melanie Barton. And Melanie did a meditation. And I gave myself a brief background presentation. And then I channeled Ort. And then Ra came through. And I think that's on my website. And he describes how the reveal will happen. And that was then. Whether it's changed or not now, I don't know, because they say that we're now coming through the citizens of Earth for the reveal itself. But if you're interested in channeling, I mean, I don't know whether people fully understand it. I don't know that I fully understand it. I just know that I'm able to do it. And I don't mind doing it. And I think it's important that we share this information. But if you're interested in and there's another channel I did. I was asked to do one for the exo-conscious community. It's a couple of years ago now, but they uploaded that onto the exo-conscious website. And I think there, again, I channel Ort and Ra. And I've just done another one about 4 weeks ago. And I channeled Edgar Mitchell, Ort, what else was that? Oh, a indigenous Indian ancestor who passed.
Yeah.
He was representing the ancestral indigenous people, and Orton Ra. So, and that, I don't think it's been uploaded yet onto the website, but it will be. But when you watch these, you'll get an idea. And if you don't believe in channeling, that's fine. If you do, that's fine.
Oh, we do. Believe us, we do.
Yeah, I'm just a messenger at the end of the
We
day.
have
Exactly.
our own experiences as well.
Oh, you
That's
do?
exactly-
Okay, yeah.
That's
I
exactly
know
what I say.
I think it is a fascinating aspect of who we are. And I know one day we go to a local restaurant, and normally sit at the bar, we have a couple of beers and then something to eat. And I'm sat talking to this guy, and we started talking about the CERN Hadron Collider, and it turned out his mother worked there. I'm not quite sure. So we're having this conversation, and then Ort came in and was wanting to take over the conversation. I had to tell him to leave because I hadn't given him permission to do it. But he was so excited. He wanted to talk to this guy. Yeah. But I don't know. It still fascinates me. I know when I read the transcripts, like in this Forbidden Knowledge book here, and I think, wow, did I say that? Where does that information come from? It's just, I just find it fascinating.
You know,
We will
before
be adding.
I'm just
Sorry, Renata. I just want to say we will be adding all of these books and websites and communities for convenience here down in the comment section.
If you're interested from the spiritual side in relation to, I get a lot of synchronicity with numbers. I'm very often woken up at 1:11 a.m., 222, 333, 444. And these numbers, if they give me a download of information, I'll then, what I normally do if it's during the night, I'll walk into my bathroom, and from there I would repeat the message back to them. And from my bathroom, I can see a street light, and I would say, can you turn that street light out to confirm the information has come from you? And the street light goes out immediately. And I've done it reverse as well when I've asked them to turn the street light on when it's been daylight, and the street light comes on immediately. So I get confirmation of the information that I'm given. And on one occasion, I was woken up at 4:44, and I was given information for Chloe Sevigny. She's a young 24-year-old Canadian experiencer, and she contacted me. She wanted to interview me for her podcast or something, so we did that. Anyway, the Council of Eight gave me a message for her, and they woke me up at 4:44 a.m. I conveyed the message to Chloe, and she said to me, Kevin, 444 is a very important number for me. I have it tattooed on my body. I didn't ask where, but that's the connection that they use for numbers. And in this book, Forbidden Knowledge, I think Kathleen Marden's got my photograph in, and it appears on page 111, which is quite interesting. And then I asked her, did you do that on purpose? She said, no, I sent it to the publishers, and it just appeared on page 111. And then she wrote another book here, Extraterrestrial Contact. Again, that's Kathleen Marden. She's a prolific writer. And in there, she'd had an issue with a negative entity that had attached itself to her, and she was unable to get rid of this entity. So she contacted me and said, Kevin, can you ask the Council of Eight if they can remove this entity? So I asked them, and they removed it immediately. She wrote about it in this book. So it's in this book, but it's on page 222. So again, confirmation again of all these numbers. And once you start putting this information together, it gives you confidence in the information, and it's fairly common apparently within these spiritual groups and things where people get confirmation with numbers, and I sometimes I'll say, you've just given me all this information. Can you show me a butterfly? And a butterfly just flies past like this. So whether it would have flown past anyway or not, I don't know. But I don't think it's any coincidence that when you asked. In fact, I've got a very interesting story in relation to using consciousness for communication with butterflies. And these... just a simple an explanation, really, and it involves my brother. He's a retired aircraft engineer, and when he retired, he moved down to Spain. He'd been there for 2 or 3 years, and he has a balcony that overlooks the Mediterranean. And I speak to him regularly on FaceTime or whatever, and he said to me, Kevin, you should see the butterflies down here. They're huge. I mean, we have butterflies in the UK, but he said these are as big as your hand. I said, oh, well, why don't you ask one of the butterflies to come and land on your hand? And then he said, oh, they won't do that. I said, well, being an engineer, a nuts and bolts man, no, they won't do that. I said, well, indulge me. Go outside on your balcony. When you see a butterfly come flying past, hold out your hand and ask it to come and land on your hand. But I said, you'll need a reason. And this is an example of using consciousness as a communicator. And so I said, you'll need a reason. Tell it you want to have a look at the beautiful colours on its wings. So this butterfly come flying past. He asked it. It flew out of sight, turned around, came back, and landed on his fingers. And I'm watching this on my phone. I said, right, now what you need to do, you need to ask it to go away and come back with a friend. But you need a reason. And the reason is you want to compare the beautiful colours on the wings of a friend. So it took off, it flew out of sight, it came back, it landed back on his fingers, and the second one landed on his forehead. That day, he had 12 separate landings of butterflies on him. Before that, he'd just been watching them go backwards and forwards. That's an example of using consciousness for communication. Now, the following day, he was showing off to his wife. He said, Lorraine, come outside and I'll ask the butterflies to come and land on you. They went outside. I've got photographs of, she's got one on her forehead, one on her glasses, one on a book she's reading, a couple on her arm. They came and landed on her. And then interested in about 12, 18 months later, unfortunately, Lorraine passed. And my brother Michael went to Scotland to spread her ashes. And while he was spreading the ashes, he was with one of his sons. He saw a butterfly, and he asked the butterfly to come and land on him. And the butterfly landed on his son. I suspect that was a manifestation of his wife showing him that she appreciated what happened. So, and I have contact with the insect realms, the plants, the trees, the animals, because I use my natural human abilities accessing consciousness. And they're a part of my shared consciousness. And I speak to them, I talk to them. But
I absolutely agree that communication with other beings in the sense of plants, animals is absolutely, I can confirm that it's absolutely a muscle, that it's just a question of exercising it, and eventually we will start feeling and communicating with those other forms of life, right? It's a beautiful thing, by the way.
Yeah, I think so. I've got another story, a quick story with a dragonfly. I went out one day, there's a small dragonfly, beautiful colours on it, and it was trapped in some netting I have over my vegetables. So I tried to release it, I couldn't release it. So I went inside, got some scissors and cut the netting away, and it just flew off. So I thought that was good. Then later on, I went out with my two dogs. And I was sat on the front porch, and a dragonfly of the same colour and size came flying around me through my legs. And then I held my hand out to see if it would land on, and it came up to about an inch from my fingers. It didn't land, but it looked at me. I think that was the actual dragonfly that I'd saved. But then later on in the day, I'm out walking my dogs again. I walked past the plants at the front of the house, and all the dragonflies that were on there were eating, feeding or whatever, followed me. I went with my dogs and followed me back again. And then 3 months later, I was pressure washing my driveway, and this full-size dragonfly, big thing, same colour, but full size. It looked like a big male to me. I don't know much about dragonflies, but it flew around my legs. I thought, oh, be careful, I might hit you with a pressure washer. I turned my pressure washer off, and it came and it landed on my forehead. I think that was the same dragonfly that I'd saved. It grown, it's 3 months later, and it's full size. So they do remember. But once you utilize using that frequency of consciousness for the plants, the trees, the animals, then it's just an extension then to using it to connect with our star families. We're all part of that shared consciousness. And how I learned to do that really was quite interesting. I went to a conference, can't remember where it was now, and one of the lecturers there, David Lewis, I think his name was, he's passed now too, and he was talking about animal communication. And I've always enjoyed animals. I've always been part of my life. And so he told us how to do it and how it worked and why. And this conference, we were on a farm, and we broke for lunch, coffee break, I think it was. And we all went outside. There are these picnic tables. And there's a young girl there with a lamb. And I said, oh, what are you doing? And she was walking around with this lamb. I said, oh, what are you doing with the lamb? She says, oh, it's obviously a newborn lamb. I'm trying to get him used to humans, but he won't go up to, he hasn't gone up to anybody, or she hasn't gone up to anybody yet. I said, oh, what type of lamb is it? She said, it's a merino lamb. I said, oh, right. So I thought, I'm going to try my newfound skills here. I'm going to ask telepathically for the lamb to come up to me so I can feel its fleece. And I said, "Oh, I understand you're a merino lamb. You're a very beautiful lamb. I understand your fleece is very special. I've never felt the fleece of a merino lamb. Will you come up to me so I can touch your fleece?" Anyway, nothing happened, so I'm drinking my coffee. Then I felt something rubbing next to my leg. I looked down, it was the lamb. So I stroked the lamb and I thanked you. I said, "Oh, it's all just telepathic." I said, "Oh, thank you very much for that. I do appreciate it. What beautiful fleece you have." Anyway, he wandered off and started eating some
Yeah,
grass. And then I
that's
went to get another coffee. I went into the farmhouse. It was a galley kitchen. I walked all the way down to the end of the kitchen to get a coffee. I turned round and the lamb was behind me. It followed me in. But then when I came out, the young girl said, "Kevin, you're the first human that the lamb has interacted with." But that's because I reached out at his level or
yeah,
her level of consciousness. So that was my But I only learned that through listening to the lecture with David Lewis. But now I practice it
yeah.
all the time with all the different plants, trees, animals. And once you realise it works, yeah, I'll get a bird. I'll be sat outside with my dogs and a bird will come and land fairly near. And I said, "Oh, you're a beautiful bird. Can you come a bit closer so I can have a look at your feathers?" And it'll fly closer. It's
Amazing.
just, and once you do that all the time, you realise that you are connected. You're not on your own when you're sat out in nature. You're part of it.
We'll try that. But it's interesting that when you started to talk about the synchronicities with numbers, a few seconds after, I was watching the time of our recording, and it was 1 hour, 11 minutes, and 11 seconds. And I was like, oh, I didn't want to say anything because I didn't want to interrupt you, but I'm like, okay, it's a match, because
Yeah,
it was just
exactly.
like you started to speak.
Yes, now you've noticed it. You'll be
I
watching
noticed.
on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Somebody told me something the other day when it was a friend of hers that passed, and they'd had missing time experiences together. But I think when she passed, it was 1, 11, 11, 11 down to the seconds.
Mhm.
So, yeah, there's that connection there in relation to consciousness. And some people say that that's the angelic connection
Wrong.
Mm-hmm.
from the angelic realm.
Angelic realms.
That they give you
Yeah.
the those
Yeah.
numbers. A bit
The numbers.
fascinating.
And another thing
I
that I wanted just to finish this now, otherwise it's
Mhm.
going to be out of context, because I'm going to tell you that before we started this recording, I was having a meditation, and I directed telepathically again to Orton Dee, and I said, if there's any question that you want Kevin to answer, any different information that it's not been coming up in other podcasts, and that you might wish that he conveys, I am open. We are open to to ask the question for you. So I don't know if this has happened or not. We have talked about lots of things, but yeah, I established also the intention.
intention.
Yes, I think that's the key, the intention of what you want to do. If you put that intention
Yeah.
there, and then because intention is part of the creation, you can create the reality with that intention. And once
Right.
we realize that, you could have the intention of seeing a beautiful butterfly this afternoon when you go and sit outside and have a coffee or something, and then one
Mhm.
flies past or whatever. So, yeah, if you start off simple, doing the simple things, and then you can create more. And then when you get a group of people together who want to create the same things and again have the intentions, we know there are infinite possibilities, infinite potential there through thought and consciousness itself. So, yeah, it makes us very
This is
beings, really, I think.
Yeah, I think we are in an era that I personally believe that we're starting to see that more and more and more people. I always see like in the social media and in the conversations that we see nowadays. I'm more and more seeing that the people that wouldn't believe in consciousness, energy, like everyone coming together on a single view, which is based on love and union and everything. I see the people more and more having these conversations, and it's a beautiful, because setting the intention at a country level, at a a community level, it really changes the frequency. And this is a perfect segue, because I'm interested in passing the word of other people that see this podcast and are interested in establishing the connection. What is your advice?
Oh, what I normally say to that is, we've all got guides. Okay, we all have guides who are extraterrestrial as well. We've got our deceased family and friends who are guiding us as well. We've got the angelic realm, we've got the divine. They're all there, but what we have to ask, that is the key. And I find the easiest way to start with any of this is have the intention during the day of what you would like, what information you would like, or what experience you would like. Then go to sleep and ask before you go to sleep for that intention to materialize, as it were. The dream state, again, frequencies of consciousness where the higher levels of conscious beings can connect with you, communicate with you without frightening you. And once you realize that, you are entering another realm, another state of consciousness, and it's an easy state to learn and have an understanding of consciousness. So, and then the other thing is the meditation, looking inward. I didn't realize as a child I was meditating. I was looking for answers, but I was looking inward for the answers and not outward. And so because I had the guides, I was able to ask them. But it wasn't until I was 17, 18 that, as I say, I asked Orton Dee, because family and friends weren't aware of that. And I know a little bit further on from that, Art came to me one evening and said, Kevin, and I'd travelled quite extensively with him out of body. I'm going to take you somewhere special tonight. Would you go with me? I said, yes. So I left my body. I looked down, it was fast asleep. We went out to the roof and just kept going up and up and up. And I saw the earth getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And we went into a higher dimension. And when we entered that dimension, there was a line of 30 people stood there waiting to greet us. At the head of the line was my deceased father. He was stood up. He was 6 feet tall. I'd never seen him standing before, because when I was born, he was in a wheelchair. He greeted me and said, Kevin, I'm going to introduce you to your family generations going back 30 generations. So we went down the line. I was introduced to the first 15. They showed me their last incarnation. And then the last 15, they didn't show me the figure of them. They were pure conscious energy orbs, 4 to 6 inches across, slightly vibrating. But then they could communicate telepathically. They could show me their last incarnation. So I went to visit them on several occasions with Ort, and I got confident and comfortable. I was able to do that on my own. So I left my body. I went to visit with them over a 2-year period. And when I went to visit them, this feeling of love, it was just overwhelming. And they always wanted me to stay with them. And I said, no, I've got things I want to do. I'm enjoying my physical in the 3rd dimension, and I've got things I want to do. And then I was finding it more and more difficult to get back. They were always trying to persuade me to stay. And I felt if I stayed with them, my physical would die. So I decided at work one day I wouldn't go back and visit them anymore, but I would have to go back one more time and let them know. So I went back on this last occasion. Again, I was greeted with this tremendous amount of love, this euphoria that comes over you. They wanted me to stay. I told them the reasons why I wouldn't, but I said, I know you're here. When my physical passes, I will come back and join the family. So that was another experience that Art gave me in relation to the different levels of consciousness and the fact that we are spiritual beings having a physical experience. I'm not quite sure. I think probably the soul itself can learn, so we can learn, and we can continue to grow as a species, as humanity.
Mhm.
Well, Kevin, I don't know, Renata, do you want to make any final questions?
I think we've
Uh,
covered quite a bit today.
yes.
Uh,
I
Yes.
think we did.
we
We
not
covered
We sure
everything
did.
that
topics all over the place, which is fine, which is very good. I think perhaps when the documentary comes out, or the film, it's now just going to be a film now. I think it's a 2-hour film, A Greater Reality. When that comes out, you can explain to your viewers that it's out, where to watch it. And then perhaps I could come back and we could discuss that film and
For
of
see
sure.
course.
what else has transpired, where we're moving to. But again, if people are interested in the planetary constitution and the mandated protocol, go onto the Exo Conscious Community website. There's information about the members there. Aurora's artwork is there, and that's fascinating. Within that artwork are colours, and there are frequencies within those colours that activate people. So by listening to podcasts like this, you get activated. By looking at the artwork of Aurora, you get activated. By talking about it with your family and friends, by reading the different books, the different information, it activates who we are. It activates those conscious energy, the coded light frequencies within our DNA. So
We can confirm that.
sorry, say again.
We had Aurora. The previous podcast that has been just released past week is from Aurora, and we show her
Oh, right. Well,
drawings as
yeah.
well, and we can confirm that we had that. In the podcast. It was not I cannot say maybe an an activation, but we definitely connected with the images,
Right.
and kind of energies came through the images, and we had awesome conversations. So just confirm everything that you're saying, Kevin. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you. Nice to get that confirmation. But I think that the drawing of the Council of Eight with the vacant seat, I think that's very poignant. That is there for humanity. And I think that, and when you see that, and I think Ort is pointing to the seat, or he's got an open hand as if, come and join us.
Yeah. I asked if the seat was for me.
Yeah. It could be for you, Renata. It could be your seat. It could be your seat.
Okay.
Okay. Well,
so
Kevin,
thank you so
it was
much
a
for
pleasure
having
you. It was a pleasure. This is one of your houses here in the podcast, so you're very welcome to return every time you want to. But definitely, we will reach out and schedule that second podcast when the documentary or film now is out.
Yeah.
So it has been a pleasure having you, and we'll keep in contact, and we will leave everything that you mentioned, all the people and the books that you just showed us, in the description.
And if any of your viewers are interested, they can send me an email. My email is just kevinjamesbriggs@gmail.com. I answer all my emails. So if anybody's got any questions, and my website is Kevin J. Briggs. If you just go to events and media and scroll down for the 2 channels that are there if you're interested. And I'm also on YouTube. I went on the other day, and if I put my name in, Kevin Briggs, Council of 8, there's lots of interviews come up now. I was surprised how many.
Amazing.
So there's lots of information out there. Do your own research and reach out to me if I can help you. And thank you both for inviting me on your show, because without people like yourselves, I can't get the information out there. So, and I'm a bit of a technical, so I rely on people like you. So thank you.
It's a team effort. So, guys, as we saw, maybe contact isn't as distant as we think, and maybe consciousness is already reaching further than we allow ourselves to see. So thank you so much again for being with us and for staying open. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.